Is Egypt a symbol of bondage or synonymous with bondage? Is Egypt a symbol of bondage or synonymous with it? I do not subscribe to this view, and I'll show that the biblical authors didn't either. But before I outline my stance, I'd like to play a video featuring Rav Abdul Ben Levi. I believe he's a Rav now. You know him as Zion Lexx. I'll play a video featuring him so we can hear his take on it. I'll then highlight some key points he makes and present my own position.
Even the etymology of the Hebraic term for Egypt, which is Mitzrayim, captures all of the essential elements for bondage and servitude. The Hebrew word for Egypt is not Kemet. We have our own word. When you go into the Levant and when you go into Mesopotamia, there are words that we use to describe Egypt. Our word is Mitzrayim. The root of the word Mitzrayim is Zarar. Zarar means narrowness, constriction, distress, oppression. This root gives us words like Metzar, which is the Mesopotamian term, a narrow or constrained place. Zar, which is the root, enemy, oppressor, or one who causes distress. Zara, trouble, anguish, affliction. Thus, even without historical context being laid, the linguistic root of Mitzrayim carries the meaning of a place of narrowness, affliction, and restriction, all essential elements of what it means to be in bondage. That's critical and key.
As always, the Rav has done his position justice and presented it meticulously. He's presented it in meticulous detail. A few key points to refresh your memory. This is what the Rav said. The Hebrew word for Egypt is not Kemet. We have our own word. When you go into the Levant and when you go into Mesopotamia, there are words that we use to describe Egypt. Our word is Mitzrayim. That's very key. He says our word, that is the word for the Hebrews or the Israelites, is not Kemet, but it's Mitzrayim. The root of the word Mitzrayim is Zara, he continues. Zara means narrowness, constriction, distress, oppression. Zara, which is the root, and he gives these meanings as well. Enemy, oppressor, or one who causes distress, trouble, anguish, affliction. Thus, even without historical context being laid, the linguistic root of Mitzrayim carries the meaning of a place of narrowness, affliction, and restriction, all essential elements of what it means to be in bondage. That's critical and key. And yes, it's indeed critical and key. It's not unusual for people to name a place based on certain experiences they may have had. People often give names to places based on their personal or collective experiences, as these names hold deep emotional, cultural, or historic significance. A name can act as a label shaped by how individuals or groups perceive and interact with a place. So, for instance, some people associate America with racial inequality and feel it is unwelcoming to black individuals. This impression might stem from historical injustices and ongoing systemic issues, forming a narrative that frames the country in a negative light. On the other hand, Many Africans view America as a land flowing with money and opportunity. This perception is rooted in stories of immigrants leaving behind hardship to build successful lives abroad. For them, America symbolizes hope and prosperity, a place where dreams can come true with hard work. These contrasting views underscore the diverse experiences that shapes people's perceptions and labeling of places. A place name, whether literal or metaphorical, encapsulates how someone feels about it, influenced by history, culture, and personal circumstances. So, such differences also remind us that places are not static entities. They hold different meanings for different people. The same piece of land can carry both pain and promise, depending on one's perspective and connection to it. Now we can say the same about Egypt. The Hebrew Bible presents Egypt in a dual light, and it usually oscillates between a place of refuge and provision and a house of bondage. Let me repeat that. The Hebrew Bible presents Egypt in a dual light, oscillating between a place of refuge and provision and a house of bondage. Egypt plays a pivotal role in the grand narrative of Israel's history, beginning as a sanctuary for the patriarchs and their descendants, but ultimately becoming the site of their enslavement. Now, I aim to explore Egypt's transformation critically. How did this dual portrayal occur, and who is to be blamed, according to the account the Bible gives? So now pay attention to what I'm doing. I aim to explore Egypt's transformation critically. How did a place of refuge become a place of bondage? I aim to explore this critically, this transformation. How did this dual portrayal of Egypt occur, and who is to be blamed? According to the account the biblical text gives. Let's start from the top. Egypt as a place of refuge. The Hebrew Bible first portrays Egypt as a land of refuge. When Abraham faced famine in Canaan, at that time he was Abram, so when Abram faced famine in Canaan, he sought sustenance in Egypt. We see that in Genesis 12. Now, though his experience there was fraught with conflict, it underscored Egypt's reputation as a life-saving haven during times of scarcity. In Genesis 12:10, this is what we read. Now there was a famine in the land, so Abram went down to Egypt to sojourn there, for the famine was severe in the land. So here Egypt is depicted as a sanctuary. Now, despite Abram's unfair treatment towards them, Egypt is still depicted here as a sanctuary. Abram arrived with nothing and departed with wealth. We see that in Genesis 13, verses 1 to 2. So Abram went up from Egypt, he and his wife, and all that he had, and Lot with him, into the Negev. Now Abram was very rich in livestock, in silver, and in gold. I want you to pause and ask, How does one come down to Egypt with nothing? Comes down to Egypt because of famine, and then he leaves with that much wealth. Put that in your spirit. We're going to break Abraham's code. Again, Egypt here is portrayed as a place of refuge, despite Abraham's extreme unfairness to them. Why do I say that? Abraham came up with an unnecessary lie to amass wealth for himself. How does he do that? By exploiting his wife. I'm being nice here. Let me use the word that I want to use. By pimping his wife. I repeat it. Abraham came down to Egypt. And Egypt here is portrayed as a place of refuge. Even though Abraham treats Egypt extremely unfairly, what did he do? He came up with an unnecessary lie to amass wealth for himself by exploiting his wife, by pimping his wife. What was Abraham concerned about when he was coming down to Egypt? Let's read carefully. Genesis 12:11-20. When he was about to enter Egypt, he said to his wife Sarai, I know that you are a beautiful woman. You are beautiful in appearance. And when the Egyptians see you, they will say, this is his wife, and they will kill me, but they will let you live. So Abraham's concern is that if the Egyptians discover Sarai is his wife, they will kill him. Reading on. Say you are my sister, that it may go well with me because of you, and that my life may be spared for your sake. So Abram told Sarai to say to them that she was his sister. What will then happen if she says that? They would come and ask for Sarai's hand in marriage. And from that, Abram will accumulate a great deal of wealth, as they will pay a huge amount of money, a massive bride price. And that is exactly what happened. Let's read verses 14. When Abram entered Egypt, the Egyptians saw that the woman was very beautiful. And when the princes of Pharaoh saw her, they praised her to Pharaoh. And the woman was taken into Pharaoh's house. And for her sake, he dealt well with Abram. And he had sheep, oxen, male donkeys, male servants, female donkeys, and camels. What has Abram done? Abram has effectively passed off his wife as his sister, exploited his wife as his sister, pimped his wife as his sister, and made a fortune from it. Absolutely shameful to anyone with a shred of decency. Let's call a spade a spade. This is what he's done. Reading on. But the Lord afflicted Pharaoh and his house with great plagues because of Sarai, Abram's wife. Now let me ask you, what sin did Egypt commit to deserve such a punishment? It's utterly unjustified. Now I want you to listen to the king of Egypt. Verses 18. So Pharaoh called Abram and said, what is this you have done to me? Why did you not tell me that she was your wife? Now, it seems this question implies that if you had claimed she was your wife, we would have left her alone. But this contradicts what Abraham said would happen. He portrayed Egypt as a morally corrupt place, giving him a reason to exploit his wife. But that is not what we are seeing here. Reading on. Why did you say, "She is my sister"? So that I took her for my wife. I told you. They came to take Sarai because Sarai is Abraham's sister, and they paid a huge bride price for it. Here's your wife. So Abraham wasn't killed. When the truth came to light, he was actually let go. So the claim that he made about Egypt was false. Reading on, verse 20. And Pharaoh gave men orders concerning him, and they sent him away with his wife and all that he had. Pharaoh, who had every right to claim back the dowry he paid for Sarai, chose not to. And Abraham doesn't have the decency to say that I'm a righteous man, so I'm going to give it back. He does not have the decency to do that. So now, who emerges as more righteous in this situation? Pharaoh, and by extension, Egypt. So, we can conclude that Egypt is portrayed not only as a place of refuge, but also a place of moral integrity, and should we add righteousness. Compare the two, Abraham's behavior and Pharaoh's behavior. Now, if this was a one-off, you would say that, well, Abraham was in a difficult situation, so he got to do what he got to do. But no, this is the man's character. Abraham behaves the same way when he goes to Gerar. So it's not a one-off thing. It's his nature as a man. Let's read Genesis 20, verses 1 to 7. So you see, I'm not making it up. From there, Abraham journeyed towards the territory of the Negev and lived between Kadesh and Shur. So here he's called Abraham, not Abram. So let me take it again. From there, Abraham journeyed toward the territory of the Negev and lived between Kadesh and Shur, and he sojourned in Gerar. And Abraham said to Sarah, his wife, "She is my sister." No, and Abraham said of, not to. He said of Sarah, his wife, "She is my sister." And Abimelech, king of Gerar, sent and took Sarah. Now, some might say he took, so it means that he took her by force. Not at all. This is the same word used for Abram and Nahor, who we are told took wives in Genesis 11:29. So this is not by force. He passed off, exploited, pimped again his wife as his sister. So Abimelech comes and takes Sarah as a wife. Imagine how much dowry was paid in this instance as well. Reading on. But God came to Abimelech in a dream by night and said to him, "Behold, you are a dead man because of the woman whom you have taken, for she is a man's wife." Now, here is the deity accusing Abimelech. And this was the king's response. Pay close attention, and I am glad we get a response from Abimelech. Righteous Abimelech. Verses 4. Now Abimelech had not approached her, so he said, Yahweh, will you kill an innocent people? Listen to the words of this person that you would call a Gentile. Listen to his words. Will you kill an innocent people? So just as Abimelech was innocent, Pharaoh was also innocent. It's Abraham who's been a con man here, a fraud. Reading on, did he not himself say to me, she is my sister? And she herself said, he is my brother. Now listen to the words of a righteous Gentile. In the integrity of my heart and the innocence of my hands have I done this. Who is more righteous? Abimelech or this con man Abraham? His name had been changed, so he's Abraham now. Even makes it worse. Listen to what the man says. In the integrity of my heart and the innocence of my hands, I have done this. And the deity, Yahweh himself, admits that the man Abraham is a fake and a scammer. Verse 6. Then God said to him in the dream, yes, God, boy, Lord have mercy. This is the person that you would call a Gentile, and you call Abraham the father of faith, and this is a scam that he's pulling off with kings that have favored him and given him a place to stay. This is what he does. And God said to him in the dream, yes, I know that you have done this in the integrity of your heart. You are a righteous man. You are an innocent people. This man Abraham that I'm trying to work with, he's the scammer, a fraud, pimping his wife. And it was I who kept you from sinning against me. Therefore I did not let you touch her. Now then, return the man's wife, for he is a prophet. This guy, a prophet. So that he will pray for you, and you shall live. I mean, the person writing the text also has no moral compass. This man pulls off this mess, and you call him a prophet. Those we call Gentile nations come out as extremely righteous here in these two narratives, in Gerar and in Egypt, while Abraham is portrayed as a fraud and a con artist, essentially pimping his wife for wealth. So now let's compare. Who is more righteous here? Pharaoh, Abimelech, or Abraham? Pharaoh and Abimelech come out as shining stars. I don't know what to say about Abraham. So, Egypt is not only righteous, moral, it was a place of refuge for Abraham. Moving on. Later, Egypt played a vital role in the story of Jacob's family. Joseph, who was sold into slavery by his brothers, rose to prominence as Pharaoh's second in command. Genesis 41. His success in Egypt laid the groundwork for the salvation of his family. When Jacob and his household fled the famine, Pharaoh welcomed them. Not only that, giving them the fertile land of Goshen. So for this generation, Egypt represented a place of life and hope rather than servitude. Let's read it. Genesis 46, 1-4. So Israel took his journey with all that he had and came to Beersheba and offered sacrifices to the God of his father Isaac. Put that in your spirit. It's important. And God spoke to Israel in visions of the night and said, Jacob, Jacob. And he said, Here I am. Then he said, I am God, the God of your father. Do not be afraid to go down to Egypt, for there I will make you into a great nation. I myself will go down with you to Egypt, and I will also bring you up again, and Joseph's hand shall close your eyes. It's worth noting that God doesn't refer to Egypt as a place of bondage here. He does not. Instead, it was a place of refuge. Jacob wasn't afraid to go to Egypt because it was a place of bondage, but rather because his father Isaac had been told not to leave the land, and he, Jacob, assumed the same rule applied to him. He thought he was going against that instruction. That is why he was afraid. Not because Egypt was a place of bondage. No. This is why in verses 1, the text says, I told you to put this in your spirit. The text says, he offers sacrifices to the God of his father Isaac. Why? To get clarity on whether to go on the journey or stay in the land, just as Isaac had been instructed. We are aware that Isaac is his father. His father is Isaac. So why mention it? Why tell me that he offered sacrifices to the God of his father Isaac? We know Isaac is his father. So why mention it? You could have simply said, he offered sacrifices to the God of his father. And we would all know it refers to Isaac, the father of Jacob. However, it is stated this way. I tell you, sometimes we don't read the text. We just read very fast. It's stated this way because elsewhere, Abraham is referred to as Jacob's father, not Isaac. And both are mentioned in the same sentence. You haven't seen it, so let me show it to you. Genesis 28, verses 10 to 13. Jacob left Beersheba and went towards Haran. And he came to a certain place and stayed there that night, because the sun had set. Taking one of the stones of the place, he put it under his head and lay down in that place to sleep. And he dreamed, and behold, there was a ladder set up on the earth, and the top of it reached to heaven. And behold, the angels of God were ascending and descending on it. And behold, the Lord stood above it and said, pay close attention, I am Yud-He-Vav-He, the God of Abraham your father, and the God of Isaac. Notice he doesn't say, I'm the God of Abraham and the God of Isaac your father. No, Abraham and Isaac show up in the same sentence. But now the father figure is moved from Isaac to Abraham. Now you may ask why. This is why you should join our Genesis series. We answer all these questions. So, the deity told him he was going to take him down to Egypt and back out again, down to a place of refuge, of abundance, a place of morality, and then bring him back out. So he needn't worry. Do not worry. So we see that Jacob's fear was not that Egypt was a place of bondage, not at all. His concerns were different. Is he supposed to leave the land of Canaan as his father Isaac was asked not to? Or is he supposed to leave like his Father Abraham who left. So you see why it depends on his interaction with the land and the name he invokes when he is praying. It's very critical to read the text carefully, and it's very critical to understand the entire story so you'll be able to pick out these nuances. So, for this generation, Jacob and his sons, Egypt was a place of life, a place of hope, and not a place of servitude. It was not a place of bondage. So we have Abraham. We've checked that box. We have Jacob and his entire family. And Egypt is represented in a very positive light. A place of refuge, sanctuary, a place of plenty, a place of hope, not a place of bondage. Look at Genesis 47. I'm going to read from 5 to 6. And Pharaoh said to Joseph, "Your father and your brothers have come to you. The land of Egypt is before you. Settle your father and your brothers in the best of the land. Let them settle in the land of Goshen. And if you know any able men among them, put them in charge of my livestock." So again, for this generation, Egypt was a place of life and hope, not servitude. So, we see this theme of Egypt as a land of refuge for the people of the Levant. This theme also reflects a historical reality. The country also welcomed those fleeing political persecution. For example, remember Hadad, prince of Edom, who opposed King Solomon, and then Jeroboam, king of Israel. Both sought exile in Egypt to escape death. Let's look at Hadad, 1 Kings 11, 17 to 18. But Hadad fled to Egypt, together with certain Edomites of his father's servants. Hadad still being a little child. They set out from Midian and came to Paran, and took men with them from Paran, and came to Egypt, to Pharaoh, king of Egypt, who gave him a house, and assigned him an allowance of food, and gave him land. Beautiful. This is not a place of bondage. 1 Kings 11:40. Solomon sought therefore to kill Jeroboam, but Jeroboam arose and fled into Egypt, to Shishak, king of Egypt, and was in Egypt until the death of Solomon. This is not a house of bondage. This is a house of political refuge. And look at how Egypt treats those seeking asylum. After the destruction of Samaria in 722 BCE and Jerusalem in 587 BCE, Egypt provided a refuge for some of the population. We read that in Hosea 9:6 and 2 Kings 25:26. It says, "For behold, they are going away from destruction, but Egypt shall gather them." 2 Kings 25:26. Then all the people, both small and great, and the captains of the forces arose and went to Egypt, for they were afraid of the Chaldeans. This is what Egypt signifies. So this is the portrait painted by the biblical text of Egypt. It's a place of refuge and haven for political refugees, not a place of bondage. However, this image of Egypt as a refuge is dramatically reversed by the time of Moses. Egypt is then presented in a dual light, oscillating between a place of refuge and provision and a house of bondage, Beit Avadim. So what happened? And who is to blame? What happened and who is to blame? Before I tackle that, always remember what is said. He who comes with equity must come with clean hands. You cannot ask for fairness or justice if your own actions are unethical, dishonest, or tainted. Why do I say that here? Kindly follow me.